Welcome to Common Man Cocktails. I am your host, Derek Schomer, and this is going to be one of those special, kind of semi-late night episodes. Really talking a little bit about recipes and the rights and wrongs of a recipe. And this is actually the third time I've recorded this, but it went bad twice trying to record people interrupting me out on the porch. So I'm doing it tonight. The question that comes up a lot, it's not even a question. It's a statement, a blanket statement. Doesn't matter what the recipe is. I've had it happen in multiple recipes, and I create this recipe that the fans have submitted, or I've invented, or that I found on a website, or that is just a known recipe of some type, Long Island iced tea, for instance. And the comment is, "You did it wrong." So it always makes, and I get kind of angry. I go through like these phases of why would you say that? That seems so narrow-minded. And then I want to yell at you, but then again, I understand that you're not thinking clearly. So I want to make a video for those people, to everybody, but because I think it's a good thought exercise anyway. But specifically, so I can link it to people who say, "You did the recipe wrong. That's not the recipe. You don't know what you're doing." Here's the deal: if you go over for a feast of some type, a holiday, a birthday party, Thanksgiving, whatever your holiday is for your country, region, area, and you're sitting down with, say, your grandparents, and they make you an apple pie or a cherry pie or a meatloaf, and completely different things, and you sit down, you're eating it, and you're like, "You didn't do the recipe right." And I say, "Well, it's my recipe." "Yeah, you didn't do it right." That would seem, I think, ridiculous to most people. And so that's how I kind of feel about the recipes, where if somebody submits a recipe and says, "This is the Blue Lagoon margarita," or "This is the Cloud 9, or "This is the margarita," or "This is the Long Island iced tea," and people are like, "You did it wrong." Where are you getting the definition of what it should be? And it seems that people don't usually do that when it comes to baking cookies or making meatloaf. People don't say, "You made the meatloaf incorrectly because you didn't follow the recipe." Why? I think it's because most people understand that there's many recipes for foods, for desserts, and they're okay with that. But for some reason, when it comes to cocktails, people forget that there isn't just one recipe for a Long Island iced tea. There isn't just one recipe for a margarita. And I think margaritas kind of get a pass in this way. But when it comes down to anything specific, Singapore Sling, Monte Carlo cocktail, B52, even some of the layered drinks, people are like, or ABC cocktail. People are like, "That's not an ABC cocktail. It has absinthe, chartreuse, and Bailey's." And then somebody else says, "No, it's got brandy and something with an A. That's not absinthe." I don't know. Where is that root recipe coming from? I think that's the problem. People who have invented recipes, the Mai Tai, Trader Vic's Mai Tai, where Trader Vic designs this recipe, or the restaurant designs a recipe, and they don't tell you what it is because it's a secret, and they don't want everybody making it. They want it to be their own. People will go and make their own versions of it, and eventually those versions will become the standard because nobody has any reference to the real one. In those cases, I guess you could make a recipe wrong, but who has the right recipe? Then you have the scenario where the recipes from the 30s, 20s, prior to that, 1800s, I don't care, even the 50s, somebody creates this recipe, but it never gets written down exactly the same. It goes through like word of mouth, and people say, "This is what you do, this is what you do." It's the whisper game, where I know the right answer. I whisper to somebody else, and they whisper around the room to like 50 different people. It comes back, and it's a completely different story. That is a recipe, and I think that's okay, because that probably happens with everything. The meatloaf that I make downstairs at home was a recipe that I got from my father-in-law, who he probably got from somebody else that he modified to make it taste a specific way. There is no base recipe that you can go on that is the one truth recipe unless you invented it yourself. Otherwise, I don't care if you say you aren't doing it right. I've had the real one down the road at Longhorn Steakhouse. Really. That is the one. That is the Bible of recipes. That one recipe right there. That's the one. That is it. No other recipe like it can exist if it doesn't have exactly those measures and ingredients and brands and everything that recipe defines. That's ridiculous. Right, so at the end of the day, people need to kind of open their mind and realize that most cocktails, I don't care if it's Sex on the Beach, if it's well, screwdriver is a little basic, but the measures of a screwdriver, Harvey Wallbanger, name it. You will go through 5 or 10 recipe books and you will find 5 or 10 different variants of that recipe. Different ingredient ratios, different ingredients completely, different mixing style. Maybe it's shaken, maybe it's stirred, maybe it's topped with something. That's what makes cocktails so fun. Is I can go someplace and order a Mai Tai, and I am getting their version of what they see as the Mai Tai. Where if I were to go to somebody's house and they say this is, let's go back to the meatloaf. I kind of know I don't know what to expect from that meatloaf. It's going to be a little different than the meatloaf I make, and I'm willing to accept that. Why do people have such, maybe that's a good question today, why do people have such a hard time accepting the fact that a recipe name and its specific ingredients may vary from bartender to bartender, from region to region, to country, and why is that such a big deal? Why can people just not wrap their head around the fact that I can have a recipe a user submits and it isn't wrong. It is exactly what the user submitted, and that's what they expect it to be. As long as I follow their recipe and I have left out ingredients by mistake, that would be wrong. But there's a recipe card, I followed it, I did everything right. That's how the recipe was intended. What do you guys think? Why can't they wrap their mind around that fact that there could be different variants of everything? And that's what makes things so freaking awesome. That's it. We're done for today. See you guys for Sunday Night Shooters. We're teaching you how to drink.